Hello everyone, welcome to Diplomatic Briefing. On the morning of July 6th, the 17th BRICS Leaders Summit officially opened in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, for a two-day session. In a joint statement released that day, the BRICS organization expressed serious concern over some countries raising tariffs, without directly naming any specific nation. They criticized such unilateral tariff and non-tariff measures for distorting trade, violating World Trade Organization rules, and potentially reducing global trade, disrupting global supply chains, and creating uncertainty. At the same time, while avoiding direct mention of the United States and Israel, the statement condemned the recent bombing actions against Iran, stating that these attacks violated international law and were deliberate assaults on civilian infrastructure. However, in this 31-page document, Israel's occupation of Palestinian territories was directly criticized. The BRICS countries also urged Israel to immediately withdraw its troops from the Syrian territory of the Golan Heights. Although the final text of the BRICS statement was somewhat reserved in its wording, Brazil, as the host of this summit, saw President Lula make no attempt to avoid the issue when expressing his views. In his opening speech, he warned that the BRICS countries cannot stand by and do nothing in the face of Israel's acts of genocide in Gaza, the indiscriminate slaughter of innocent civilians, and the use of hunger as a weapon of war. This leftist leader also took aim at Trump's long-standing demand that NATO member states increase their defense spending. Reuters quoted an anonymous Brazilian official as saying that although the G7 still holds significant power, it no longer enjoys the dominance it once had. The vacuum left by other countries was almost immediately filled by the BRICS organization. On November 30th last year, before U.S. President Trump had returned to the White House, he had already issued a threat on his self-created social media platform, Truth Social, demanding that the BRICS countries abandon any plans to create a new currency or support alternatives to the dollar. Otherwise, he warned, any country challenging the dollar's dominance in the global economy would face a 100% tariff. According to an article in the South China Morning Post, this joint statement did not directly provoke Trump, who pursues the so-called America First policy, but by emphasizing principled positions such as firmly opposing unilateral protectionist measures, it highlighted the coordinated stance of the member countries when negotiating trade with the United States. On the evening of July 7th, U.S. time, Trump was still paying attention to this BRICS summit, and once again issued a threat on Truth Social, saying that any country supporting BRICS anti-American policies would face a 10% tariff increase. There will be no exceptions to this policy. Thank you all for your attention to this issue. Trump's counterattack against the BRICS summit is essentially admitting that the summit statement was directed at the United States, acknowledging that the U.S. is the target of criticism. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning said that the BRICS mechanism is an important platform for cooperation between emerging markets and developing countries, advocating openness, inclusiveness, and win-win cooperation, without engaging in bloc confrontation or targeting any specific country. China has already stated its position on imposing additional tariffs multiple times. There are no winners in a trade war or tariff war, and protectionism leads nowhere. Additionally, regarding the Iran issue, the statement criticized previous attacks on Iran, but did not directly mention the United States or Israel, the two countries responsible for the attacks. The statement said that nuclear safeguards, safety, and security must always be upheld, including during armed conflicts, to protect people and the environment from harm. The statement also called on the United Nations Security Council to intervene in the current situation. According to the Associated Press, before the attack on Iran in June this year, Iranian President Pezeshkian was originally scheduled to attend this BRICS summit, but now he has sent Iran's Foreign Minister Araghi to attend instead. In his speech, Araghi told the leaders of various countries that he had advocated for all United Nations member states to strongly condemn Israel, and added that Israel and the United States should be held accountable for human rights violations. The Iranian foreign minister also warned that the consequences of war would not be limited to one country, the entire region, and even a broader area, would suffer devastation. The joint statement from the BRICS countries expressed grave concern over the humanitarian situation in Gaza, called for the release of all hostages, the resumption of negotiations, and reaffirmed their commitment to the two-state solution. On the Ukraine issue, the joint statement did not mention Russia. It only referred to Ukraine in one instance, stating that each country reiterated its position on the Ukraine conflict at appropriate venues such as the United Nations Security Council and the United Nations General Assembly. However, this year's statement included new content, adding initiatives to coordinate on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, especially the Ukraine Crisis Peace Friends group led by China and Brazil. In September 2024, the Ukraine Crisis Peace Friends group was established at the UN with participation from 17 Global South countries including Brazil, China, South Africa, Egypt, Indonesia, and Turkey. On July 7, the BRICS leaders also adopted a new declaration, calling on the United Nations to take the lead in establishing global rules for artificial intelligence. They emphasized that this rapidly developing technology must not deepen the inequality between developed and developing countries. The document describes artificial intelligence as a unique opportunity to drive inclusive growth, innovation, and sustainability, but at the same time warns that without fair governance, it could widen the digital divide. The BRICS cooperation mechanism was launched in 2006 and is composed of China, Russia, India, Brazil, and South Africa. The member countries' land area accounts for 26.46% of the world's total territory, and their population makes up 41.93% of the global population. In recent years, the international influence of the BRICS countries has been continuously increasing. On January 1, 2024, with Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, Iran, and Ethiopia becoming official members, the number of BRICS member countries increased from 5 to 10. The Associated Press quoted Scheidel, a researcher from the BRICS study group at the University of Sao Paulo, as saying that against the backdrop of Trump initiating a tariff war and causing instability, this BRICS summit is very important for all participants. He believes that, in terms of seeking alternatives and diversifying economic partnerships, this summit offers emerging countries the best opportunity to respond. According to Russian media reports, Russian President Putin said in a speech delivered via video that the combined GDP of the BRICS countries has already surpassed that of the Western-led Group of Seven, G7. He said that the BRICS member states not only account for 1/3 of the world's land area and nearly half of the global population, but their total economic output also makes up 40% of the world's total. Meanwhile, Premier Li Qiang pointed out during his speech at the first phase of the 17th BRICS leaders meeting that the world is currently undergoing accelerated changes unseen in a century, with ongoing geopolitical conflicts and economic and trade frictions, some regions still engulfed in war, international rules and order suffering severe shocks, and the authority and effectiveness of multilateral mechanisms weakening. All parties generally feel that it is increasingly necessary and urgent to reform the global governance system, and are participating in and promoting changes in global governance in various ways, whether proactively or passively. China believes that in this process, everyone should firmly safeguard the common interests of the international community and always stand on the right side of history. Only in this way can we avoid detours and setbacks, and move forward boldly along the path of peace, security, prosperity, and sustainable development. Let me briefly summarize a few observations. First, although both President Xi Jinping and President Putin did not attend the BRICS summit, which could have made it seem less significant, Trump's criticism actually increased the summit's visibility. Second, India has traditionally been seen within BRICS as playing the role of America's henchman and holding the group back, but this time it was rare to see India standing alongside Summit Chair Lula, going head-to-head with the U.S. Clearly, this is because U.S.-India trade negotiations have not been going smoothly, and India is using the BRICS summit to challenge the U.S. Third, from China's perspective, there's no need to use BRICS to confront the U.S., because right now, only China dares to challenge the U.S. on tariff issues. However, China is also happy to see BRICS standing up to the U.S.,